Randy Rhoads, 41 years ago?
40 years.
40 years
40
ago.
years last week. I think it was last Saturday.
I have something interesting too. Ironically enough, I'm going to show you this case.
So
Dana Strum.
Dana Strum. What is the importance of Dana Strum in the LA heavy metal
Okay.
and music
So
history?
a lady named Dolores Rhoads had a music academy, and they taught all manner of voice and musical instruments and guitar and stuff. She had a son named Randy. Randy was an amazingly accomplished guitar player at a young age. He was a little guy. He was tiny, very quiet. And a fellow named Ozzy Osbourne left Black Sabbath. Ironically, after Van Halen opened up for Black Sabbath on a European tour, it was Van Halen's first tour. They opened up for Black Sabbath. After Van Halen had opened up with Montrose, they broke up. And then after Van Halen toured with Black Sabbath, Ozzy said, "I can't do this anymore," and he left Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And Black Sabbath got Ronnie James Dio and entered a whole nother era that was actually really, really cool.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, Ronnie and Pennsylvania.
Hate me. I love Ronnie James Dio's era is my favorite era in Sabbath.
I loved him because I was taller than him. But anyway,
you're both elves though.
So Ozzy goes to LA and he's going to put a band together. So he hears about this band that plays very Black Sabbath sort of stuff. Bass player's name is Dana Strum. So Ozzy goes backstage. They're playing, I think it was the Whiskey or the Troubadour. And he goes backstage and he meets Dana. And you have to talk to Dana. Dana does the impressions and everything. It's amazing. But he meets Dana and he says that he, like you and I, it's you and I now, And so he steals Dana from this band to start putting his band together. And in no short order, Dana realizes that he's not going to play with Ozzy, but he helps him put a band together. And Ozzy's looking for a guitar player. Now, at the time, Hollywood, every hot guitar player in the country was there. The number of guys that auditioned for Ozzy is ridiculous. I personally know at least 15 guys that auditioned for Ozzy, including the late Shane Berger. He auditioned for Ozzy. But Ozzy wasn't seeing what he wanted with all these guys. Dana knows just the guy. It's Mrs. Rhoads' kid, Randy. Yeah. Now, Randy was playing out with a band called Quiet Riot.
Yes.
And Quiet Riot was quite the club band, and they were very well known. And Randy wasn't interested in auditioning for Ozzy.
He didn't even like Black Sabbath.
Yeah, he didn't like Black Sabbath. He was into more classical stuff.
Yeah.
And Dana convinced Randy to go audition for Ozzy. So the way it went down is Randy shows up at Ozzy's room in the hotel, and he's got a little amp and he's tuning up, and Ozzy's talking to him, and Ozzy loved him as a person. And he said, Ozzy just said, "Well, let me hear you play." And Randy played a little bit, and Ozzy said, "Well, do you want the job, man?" And it was Randy's personality. And then the fact that he was a supreme musician. But the interesting thing is, he didn't walk in there with a swinging dick. He walked in there as a humble human being.
Yeah.
Proceeded to record two of the most important hard rock albums of all time. And since Eddie Van Halen had already done the tapping thing, along comes Randy and he brings in this grandiose neoclassical sort of thing. And the first two Ozzy records, the ones with Randy, and then the live Speak of the Devil, or not Speak of the Devil, whatever the live one is. Tribute. Yeah. They're amazing records. And Ozzy never sang that well before and has not sang that well since.
And he has not written that well. The songs.
Yeah.
The songs what he's been doing. What he's been doing more recently is hiring other people to help the songwriting. Yeah. And he had help then too, but
yeah,
but that was the Blizzard of Oz was the original band.
Yeah.
So Ozzy's was a new prototype in rock and roll heavy metal.
Yeah.
That not too many
a famous guy and put a bunch of unknowns with him, and boom. And, and sadly, on their set on the Diary of Madman tour, touring for the second record. They toured constantly, and on the second record, they had one of the bus drivers had a pilot's license, and he rented a plane, and they were going to just fly around. And Randy and the seamstress for the band went up with this
Rachel.
guy, and they went for a flight. And the guy tried to buzz the bus, and he clipped the bus, and the plane went into a house nearby and exploded, and all were killed. And it's one of the biggest, stupidest, most senseless tragedies of all time.
Yeah.
The irony is Randy was talking about leaving and going back to just teaching and playing
going back to
classical
UCLA
music.
and
he was done with the rock star life. It wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And so 40 years ago, we lost Randy in a senseless, idiotic sort of thing. And Randy joins other fantastic people that we've lost, like Stevie Ray Vaughan died in a senseless accident.
Yeah.
And I think the Lord gives us truly amazingly talented people and loans them to us for a while to inspire those of us down in the trenches, like, oh, I want to be like that guy. And then he takes them back. He took Jimi Hendrix back. He took Stevie back. He took Prince. And Randy was one of these guys. He came and he was amazing. I personally didn't really know that much about him at the time. I was caught up in the Eddie Van Halen thing and starting to my own path, which is kind of interesting to think that 40 years ago I was starting to take off. And when Randy died, I became more aware of him. And I remember hearing the song D, which is a nylon string piece they did for his mom. And that's when I realized what I missed. I had just missed.
So here was a guy that the Osborne bus would pull into town, and he would call up area guitar teachers to study from.
Yeah. And there are audio tapes. There are audio tapes of him where people would come and take lessons, and they would tape the lesson, and they're popping up here and there, and it's awesome. There's very little live footage of Randy, and it's a shame because he was such an energetic performer. And I don't want to say he was a huge influence on me, but he did
change my life.
Yeah,
he was a huge influence on me. He changed my life.
Cool.
And it was after the fact. I became aware of him after I read about his death, and I read the Guitar Player magazine commemorating his life, but what he was about. And it's like, and then you listen to it, then you listen to what he did, and it's like he was a decent dude in a world full of people that aren't so decent all the time.
Yeah,
they're troubled and broken, misfit toy kind of community. Like Ozzy was a wreck. He was a wreck. So it's at that time, he was a complete, like, he had yet to really
and he's never recovered
himself
from Randy's death too. Ozzy has said publicly many times he's never recovered from losing Randy. Randy was so important to Ozzy, and when we lost Randy, Ozzy, he spiraled after that. If you've seen The Dirt, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's stupid. Like the stuff that snorting up ants on the Alamo, and I'm probably getting some of this wrong, but it's like
he
getting arrested for peeing on the Alamo, snorting up ants, grossing out Motley Crue. That is what he became noted for. Yeah, but those first two albums were absolutely iconic, and it's like Diary of a Madman, taking from classical music influences and classical guitar influences in a way that is not like the other guy that we talk about sometimes. So it was a very refreshing way that nobody really copied his sound.
No,
nobody really can do. It wasn't as easy to nail as some of the other ones.
Right. And I mean, you listen to guys like Yngwie, anybody could do that if you just want to put the time in to learn how to do that. Yngwie plays what sounds to me like two solos. He does the pedal tone thing, and then he does a sweep thing. And every song, the solos are remarkably similar. Whereas with Randy, he would write out his solos, and he would
the little compositions.
Yeah, they were brilliant little asides, and he would triple track. And when you listen, the guy played everything so consistently that you're not even aware that this is 3 different times that he laid down this track. And this was before Pro Tools. This was on tape.
Yeah.
So, it just blows my mind.
Doubled his solos, every solo.
Yeah. The precision with which he played guitar and the motion that he brought through the guitar, it's really remarkable. And so 40 years ago, rest in peace.
Yes.
We were lucky to have him. And you just wonder how many people never got a chance to pick up a guitar that could have been one of these guys.
Yeah.
How many people were born in Siberia that never saw a basketball and could have been, somebody important? How many people were born somewhere and never saw a golf club? How many people were born somewhere and never saw a pen and never learned how to write great stories? Creativity is such a bizarre sort of gift.
Yeah.
And so we're very fortunate that
Superhuman.
occasionally the Lord does put these people in our lives, like Randy and Eddie and such. And maybe somebody that I saw at the CPMAs last night might be one of these people coming up.
Absolutely.